Welcome to this month's installment of Brass Chats, brought to you by Monster Oil. What is this, 21 year?
Welcome to Brass Chats. This month we're speaking with Mr. Mase, principal trumpeter of the New York City Ballet, former member of the American Brass Quintet, and faculty member at the Juilliard School since 1987. Ray, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So the New York City Ballet, you've been doing this for how long now?
Oh, a little over 25 years.
Okay, and what is it about the ballet that still gets you excited to go to work every day?
It's a really good scene there. I love my colleagues a lot. Ballet orchestra is not for everybody. I think I often say if you're expecting people to be waiting on you at the stage door, waiting for you to leave the theater, it doesn't happen at the ballet. The orchestra's in the pit, but a lot of challenging rep. We work a lot of hours. It's grueling in that respect, but always felt fit into my schedule really well. When I was doing the quintet and doing a lot of playing around town, it was a really nice job to have to fill out those weeks and have some things. So,
do you have any favorite ballets?
Well, we do a lot of Stravinsky, and I do actually. I mean, I think Agon is just, nobody knows Agon. It's a relatively unknown work of Stravinsky's, in a sense. It's not the Firebird or the Rite of Spring.
Right.
But it's a beautiful ballet, one of Balanchine's best, I think. People say that about it. And
are there any ballets that you see on the schedule, the program for the next year, that you start practicing for immediately because you know you're going to need to?
Yeah, a lot of them. Sure, certainly. I don't know if anything stands out. I mean, like some of the Swan Lake and Sleeping Beauty can be really close to 3 hours, particularly grueling. I don't know that I practice specifically for that, but I see them in the schedule. Romeo and Juliet feels that way too. Prokofiev is a long night, a lot of pounding, a lot of hard playing. We do a lot of Nutcrackers every year, so I wouldn't say that I'm home practicing the Nutcracker every day, but I'm aware of it on the schedule, that I got a bunch of them to get through, and I think it's more like it's pretty routine in a way. There's not a lot of pieces that come along that I think, here comes, that piece. Not so much, but it's kind of a grind. It's a lot of stuff, a lot of services every week. So.
Let's go back in time a little bit. Who do you consider to be your most important teacher in your formative years?
Well, I have to say Armando Gatalla was my primary teacher in college. I got a lesson here or there with some other people, but I had Gatalla was a very distinguished man. I found that he's very personable. I got very close to him, but he wasn't the kind of he wasn't a knock-around kind of guy. I mean, I really enjoyed the sort of gentlemanly quality about him. Sort of an elegant guy, very serious about his work. I like that. I really appreciated that a lot about him.
How did he really help to develop your playing? What types of things did you talk about in lessons?
Gatalla was a very stylish player, very individual player. I think one way or another he brought that out of me, whether it was his influence or something inside of me is hard to say, but I think we were a good fit, because I think I always thought of my playing as my own, and I think that he, because of his personality and how he played, I think that brought that out. I think those qualities were something I was able to get from my study with him.
What were you doing in terms of a nuts and bolts level in your formative years there, before you actually got real work to become the player you are?
I think with Gatalla, he had pretty good sense of, we worked on things, he had a good plan for what we were going to do in lessons, and I did a lot of etudes actually in college. Not so much excerpts. I mean, I certainly brought them in, or solos, but it really was more fundamentals and that kind of developmental stuff, which I think I had a good sound training in that from him. I think that contributed a lot to what I was doing. I think that helped me a lot in those early years, that sound fundamentals.
Let's talk about that a little bit more specifically, the ABQ. How do you feel that group has informed your playing and or changed it over the years?
Wow. Boy, there was a lot to learn getting in a group like that. When I got out of school...
Now, who were the members when you joined up?
When I joined the American Brass Band in 1973, the other trumpeter was Lou Ranger.
Yeah.
Ed Birdwell on horn, Herb Rankin on trombone, and Bob Biddlecombe on bass trombone.
Okay.
Well, I think there's a lot of things in a quintet that come along that inform you as a person as much as you're playing. And I think there's a lot of chores that have to be done in a quintet, and there's a lot of, look, it's a partnership. You have to find a way to work with your colleagues well, and you have to find a way to bring out the best in each other. So some people emerge in leadership capacity, emerge with strengths in certain areas, and you have to find a way, somebody has to kind of be at the helm a little bit to sort of manage.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, was how do you deal with artistic and personal differences within the group? It's a common thing among chamber ensembles. How did you guys deal with it?
You're right, it's a big issue in the group. I think for one, the members we had in the group and new members that we took in the group, we were careful to make sure that, certainly they had to fit artistically into the group, but part of being artistic fit is to be able to fit in the group and work in the group, and I think we were, our auditions would be playing, but then an interview, and the interview would be a way to see how someone viewed the group.
Did you ever find it difficult gaining audiences in the early days of the group?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's ongoing. The American Brass Quintet, I dare say, from the early years, knew what it was. It's not for a general kind of audience in a way. I mean, it's a chamber music audience, and I think if it was always difficult if we were put in that environment where people's expectation would be, oh, this is going to be an entertaining, lighthearted concert. It's not what we did, unfortunately.
What was the most difficult rep you guys played over the years? Or a composer, or certain pieces that stick out to you?
Well, that's a simple one, actually. Back in 1974, we commissioned Elliott Carter to write a brass quintet.
And when did you join the group again?
73.
Okay, this is brand new, all right.
Brand new, yeah. So I had been in the group about a year when the quintet was already commissioned, and the piece came up in the summer of 1974. I guess I'd say that was really the most challenging thing that we ever had to do, but it also was a pivotal piece. I think up until then, we had some good pieces, certainly, but nobody saw what we were doing, that we were going to be going after. Carter was sort of the dean of American composers then. I mean, a very important composer, and getting the commission was a big deal for a brass quintet.
We talked earlier about audience reception of your music. It's a very difficult balance to play art music and music that you really enjoy playing versus making audiences happy and gaining an audience. What rep did you find was the best received by audiences?
Well, I take a step back with your question to say, so I don't think that the role of a group like ours, or maybe artists in general, is to feel like, well, what we do is simply about pleasing an audience. I think you play the music that you believe in, and you play the repertoire that you think you respond best to, that you think expresses music the way you want to express music, the whole variety of things. But I think then that's what you bring to your audience, and your audience hopefully responds to your integrity and sincerity that you have for the music that you play. It's not for everybody. I think whenever you start to think about the bottom line, well, we want to play music that will appeal to everybody, I think you're compromising artistically in a way that hopefully you don't have to do. Hopefully I'll tell you a story about sort of in the late 80s. We had a manager who didn't exactly understand what the quintet was as well as our current manager, or the manager we have for the last 20 years, understands it. But this particular manager called one day and said to me something about, oh, well, we have an opportunity to, there's a concert, they're asking if you guys we can play a set of Joplin rags on the concert. And she said something like, you guys do that, right? And I said, well, no, actually, we don't. And I kind of thought she would know that. But then the next thing that followed was something like, well, there's a concert on the line, so of course, you'll get it together so we can have it on the concert because that's what the presenter wants. It was funny because I never really felt like, we would be hardline about it. But right then I said, well, to tell you the truth, no, that isn't what we play, and we don't choose to play it. It's not a quality judgment. It's simply not what we do. And if the presenter demands that it be played, I think they should get a different group.
What do you miss most about the group?
The concerts.
Yeah.
I think the concerts, and it's funny, traveling with the guys was always really great. We had a very even-tempered group. really friendly guys, no hotheads in the group, nobody like freaking out because of this, that, or the other. And playing good concerts all the time takes a lot out of you. I mean, I always found we'd get somewhere interesting, and you know, a couple of the guys were always able to say, hey, we're going to go out and do this and that this afternoon, and I'd be saying, you know, I got to take a nap. You know, I got to take it easy to warm up and be ready for the concert, because I just thought that's what I was supposed to do. I needed it.
Right.
I needed to rest. So we went some great places that I didn't really see because I was sort of thinking about the concert, you know.
Yeah. What qualities do you ascribe to your best students?
I think my best students are open-minded. I think they're willing to be very disciplined about what they do. I don't think they're sort of crazy, you know, and impulsive about what they do. I think they understand that they need to be patient and they need to, you know, put time in on a lot of different things, but certainly time on fundamentals. You'd spend a lot of time. Things don't happen overnight. There's no magic. There's no secrets. It's really hard work, and I think the best ones understand that you see progress over time. You don't see it sort of in a day or a week. When I see that in somebody who's sort of even-tempered that way as a student, I think they have a better chance than somebody who expects things immediately or is kind of quick to just jump all over the place. You know, I don't think that's a good thing for a student. I think patience is important.
What are your lessons like generally in terms of, I don't know, percentage of time you spend on fundamentals? Do you work on a lot of rep with students? What's your basic approach with your students?
Well, I think I'm a believer that to be a good teacher, you're kind of a different teacher for every student. And if you start to think you have formula, if you start to think, I know how to do this, and if it works for one, it's going to work for all of them, I think you're going to make mistakes. I think you're going to have some success, but you're going to have some pretty bad failures too, because one size fits all doesn't work in teaching, I think. But having said that, I think fundamentals are really critical. I think while if you ask my students these questions about my teaching, some would say, well, you know, Mr. Mase, maybe do this. How come he didn't make you to do that? You know, so they probably would have the differences, but yeah, I'm a stickler about fundamentals. I think that if you can play the trumpet, you can play repertoire, but you have to learn how to play the trumpet, and the way you learn to play the trumpet is through, you know, routine exercises and things that build strength and build good technique.
Do you have a routine?
I wouldn't say that. Well, I have actually sort of developed some thoughts about practice that, and I don't know, it's on the internet somewhere. Somebody's put it up somewhere. Let's
get the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, the Cliff Notes. Okay, so I think that every player should have some things that they do daily that sort of maintain their skill or gives them a sense of evaluation. I call it maintenance. And I think it can vary somewhat. Certainly over time it varies, but something where you get your body going and you feel like you understand your playing on a day-to-day level. Personally, I have an area of technical practice that I do every day, which is assigned. I assign myself materials saying, and I think it's the right way. I think when you just skip around book to book and etude, it's not bad for you, but you don't see anything from day to day. You don't see progress. So when I'm practicing, I put up a couple of H's. I say, okay, these are on the stand for the next 4 or 5 days. I'm going to work on these, and I expect to show myself progress. I expect I'm going to...
So what is it this week? What's the assignment this week?
Okay, you know the worm studies? They're on my music stand.
Oh, I haven't played them, but
I did them when I was in high school, and I sort of rediscovered them over the summer. I went through the whole book over the summer. I'm still reviewing a few of them, but they're not that hard. But to play them really well from beginning to end, that's on my stand.
Now you've been playing at such a high level for such a long time. What are your specific goals now? What do you try? People, I mean, would watch you say that and they would say, "That's Ray Mase. He can play anything." What are your specific goals? What are you working on? You're playing right now to actually try to improve on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I work fundamentals all the time, and I would say. Every player would say that there's certain things that come very naturally to them, that if they don't play for a while, or even if they're very tired playing too much, those certain things in their playing stay with them. And there's other things in their playing that are elusive. Certain things I feel, as long as I'm breathing, I can make those things happen. But other things I don't feel so confident about. So I work those things hard, and I've got to work them all the time, or I don't I don't live up to the standards that I expect for myself.
How have you worked on articulation? Is it something that's come easy to you, or how do you teach it?
Actually, so I don't know how widespread this idea of so-called anchor tonguing is, and I don't even know where the name came up, but my students ask me about anchor tonguing because this is the sort of the way that I was taught to tongue, and a lot of players use this type of articulation, and it's not all that unusual. I know Phil Smith was one that used it. Herbert L. Clark tongued this way. Gatala. A lot of my colleagues, since you can't see it, you can't be sure that someone tongues this way, but essentially it's to put the tip of the tongue down lower in your mouth, sort of kind of anchoring it where the bottom teeth and gums meet. And then the articulation is done by the sort of an inch back on the tongue making contact with the roof of the mouth. So it's kind of like a this way as opposed to the tip. And I've done it for my whole career. That's how I've articulated. But I liked that sound when I heard it. And so Gatala showed me this way of articulating. And
what are the biggest mistakes that you find that young players make?
Mistakes that young players make. A lot of times I think my students, and I think we all do this, get very hung up about certain details and can't get past them. Or a student will come to me and be so focused on one particular note in a piece or one particular passage that everything suffers because of that sort of tunnel vision about that one event. And a lot of times the success of a performance in the eyes of that person will be either they made that lick and it was a great performance, or they missed it and it was a horrible performance, and generally the truth is somewhere in the middle.
What advice do you have for freelance musicians to try to make it in the market?
Well, freelance is a tough field, and I dare say I don't think it's for everybody. I think you got to send the right signals. Let's start with, you certainly have to be able to play, and you have to be able to understand what's going on around you and be able to fit in. And I think if somebody is really kind of set in their ways or not particularly flexible or not quick, those are things you need to have those qualities to be successful as a freelancer. People's ability to fit in and be cooperative and flexible are traits that really work. Got to be able to sight read really well, because an awful lot of opportunities are sort of last-minute opportunities where if somebody's not feeling well and you get a chance to go in. And I know my first years at the Ballet really were to come in and sub shows. Somebody was out for whatever reasons, no rehearsals, just go in and sub. And I think that in certain ways the whole orchestra is made up of people like me who were subs at first and were able to make their way into the orchestra by being good at doing that. And it just seems like that's the kind of player that worked out over there.
Yeah. You've performed with many famous people over the years. Do you have any stories about some famous people you've performed with?
Certainly, there were a few years when I played regularly at the New York Philharmonic and had a chance to sub there a good amount. And so there was a Mahler second, as well as a Tchaikovsky fifth with Leonard Bernstein, which I thought was pretty special. I had only worked with him a few times in my career, and the things you hear about sort of the aura about him, I think really were true. I think there was something special about him. He wasn't necessarily easy, but my experience, and not that I had an enormous experience with him, but my experience was he was able to bring out really special qualities in performance.
Okay, this is the monster round. Are you ready?
Yeah.
It's going to be more or less rapid-fire questions
Oh,
and short answers, and it's going to cover a very wide array of topics.
I have total veto power over this, right? Yeah. Okay, good.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I just want to reiterate that. Yeah. Okay.
All right, there's a softball. The first question's an easy one. Put you at ease. What's your favorite place to play the trumpet?
New York State Theater.
Name a composer whose music should be performed much more than it is.
David Sampson.
Hardest thing you've ever attempted to play?
Oh man. Ralph Shapey Brass Quintet.
Ralph Shapey.
So you didn't know that one.
It's harder than the Elliott Carter?
Well, there's things about it that are really, really nuts. Yeah.
Greatest jazz trumpet player of all time?
Miles Davis.
Okay. What instrument would you choose if you could do it all over again?
Piano.
Proudest achievement?
Proudest achievement. My family. My kids. I got a couple of great daughters.
Best car you've ever owned? Best car.
Best car was my Mazda RX-7.
Drink of choice.
Woodford Reserve Bourbon.
Who's the best concert band in the world right now? Is it the U.S. Coast Guard Band or one of the other ones?
The United States Coast Guard Band is the greatest band in the history of man and will remain so until the end of time.
Okay, last question. This is it.
Okay.
You didn't know what you signed up for, did you? If you could play one more concert, and this isn't an ABQ thing, this is just anything, what would you put on the program?
Well, I understand it's not an ABQ thing, although I think I was artistically most invested in that in my career. I mean, I played some concertos and things. I played a Dave Sampson trumpet concerto that I loved, and I played a number of times that I got real involved in and loved doing. But there were things we played in the quintet that really meant a lot, that were really important to me. And so I guess if I was going to play one more time, it would probably be that, just because that...
The quintet stuff,
yeah, I mean, that really was such a big part of what I did in my career. So
well, that's all we have for you. So thanks so much for
like
joining us.
Yeah,
Really appreciate your time. It means a lot to
I
us.
hope you
Thank
got something to work with.